You deserve to know how to tell what the hell is going on. Real news coexists with other reports. Psyops will very often distract from bigger issues, like UFO footage released during major policy debates. Huge red flag.
A co-sponsor of this bipartisan drone legislation, which the FBI, the DHS, the FAA, and the DoD, the Department of Defense, all support. Our bill, among other things, explicitly authorizes state and local authorities to conduct drone detection. But the federal government just doesn't have the ability or resources. These are people we know and we trust.
These are people we know and we trust.
Recently in New Jersey, we've seen reports of loud and menacing drones. And while the Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, and other key agencies have assured the public that these drones pose no immediate Homeland Security threat, my legislation, which passed out of the committee that I chair, Homeland Security and Government Affairs, been working to pass bipartisan legislation that would address these concerns by giving law enforcement the tools and the authorities that they need to detect, to identify, and track. Would equip law enforcement agencies, including state and local police, like the officials currently dealing with the ongoing situation in New Jersey. Most urgently, this bill would ensure that law enforcement has the technology needed to quickly and clearly identify exactly what the reported sightings of drones across the country actually are. That's why my bill would allow the tools to mitigate these threats effectively. But agencies, they must have the tools to mitigate. And that's why my bill would allow the Department of Homeland Security and the Department of Justice to operate a pilot program so that state and local law enforcement agencies can conduct drone mitigation activities to safely disable threatening drones before they cause serious harm.
Reserving the right to object, it's currently illegal, and the federal government has the capacity to investigate and stop drones that are in airspace, over our military bases, following our ships. We have that capacity. But what is disputed, and what the Biden administration is currently telling us, is they don't see a problem.
The FBI and other key agencies have assured the public that these drones pose no immediate Homeland Security threat.
So if there is a problem, let the Biden administration be forthcoming. Let us know the extent of the problem. Let us know who's flying the drones, and let us know what's going on.
Is this going to expand government control or justify new laws?
This body must not rush to grant sweeping surveillance powers.
Concerns by giving law enforcement the tools and the authorities that they need to detect, to identify, and track drones to.
What this legislation seeks to do now is to expand federal authority to intercept communications and disrupt drone activity, powers that raise serious concerns for Americans' privacy, civil liberties, and Fourth Amendment protections against unwarranted search and seizure. We are being told this legislation is urgent, that it is needed to address an imminent drone threat.
So step 4, look for emotional triggers.
And this pattern is all too familiar. History has shown us time and time again how fear,
so this is fear, anger, amazement,
and manufactured urgency are used as pretext to expand government power at the expense of freedom. After 9/11, Congress passed the Patriot Act. In the name of security, Americans were promised that these surveillance powers were necessary. They would only, until we discovered that these powers were being used on Americans. Instead, they were abused, misused, and weaponized. Innocent Americans had their privacy violated, their data collected, and their rights trampled. The bill before us would grant law enforcement significant authority to intercept private electronic communications without consent. For example, the bill would allow the government to conduct dragnet surveillance of the phones innocent Americans traveling through U.S. airports, as long as the government claims they are doing it to neutralize a drone. This is not just about security. It's about unchecked government overreach. It's about capitalizing on fear.
Psyops use coordinated messaging to reinforce a narrative.
And media-driven hysteria to jam through sweeping legislation that could violate the civil liberties of American people. The lesson here is clear. When Congress legislates